3 spine-chilling true stories of haunted hidden cameras exposed and the sinister truths discovered. The Johnson family thought they were moving into their dream home. A charming old house in Maplewood, with its friendly neighbors and golden autumn leaves falling gently, seemed perfect. But as October whispers grew darker, the illusion of safety began to fray. One crisp evening, as the wind whistled a chilling tune, Grace shrieked with fright, "Mommy!" I heard thuds in the hallway. Mark, the ever-reassuring father, waved it off. "Just the house settling, sweetheart." But as Linda caught shadows dancing beneath the porch light, her heart sped up. Something felt wrong. The once cozy home now felt vast and empty. A trap. Days passed, but the unsettling sounds morphed into something sinister, paisley echoes creeping into their nightly routine. Grace trembled in her bed, haunted by visions of a woman dressed in gray, lurking under their window with eyes glimmering like sharp knives. Just another ghost story, Mark chuckled nervously, even as doubt twisted in his stomach. Ellie cocked her head and whispered, "I saw her again." Mark, determined to quell the rising panic, led Linda and the girls on evening strolls through the neighborhood. The gentle crunch of leaves sounded hollow, each crackle echoing ominously around them. Suddenly, a shadow darted into the darkness. Mark's pulse raced like a rat chased by a cat. Heart pounding against his ribcage, he felt an unseen force trailing them. They fled home, breaths ragged, returning to walls that didn't feel like home anymore. With nightfall, an unsettling discovery shattered their illusions of comfort. Hidden cameras, peeking from crevices, their own personal big brother. Panic gripped their throats as they stumbled upon online articles about Maplewood's nostalgic facade hiding grim tales. Betrayal, jealousy, secrets. They were trapped in a community that wore smiles while dark truths throbbed beneath. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sleep-deprived and terrified, they unearthed stories of neighbors turned enemies, twisted betrayals woven subtly into the map of their new lives. The woman in gray wasn't just a figment of imagination, she was Pulse, Heartbeat, the dark heart of Maplewood. They needed answers, but every attempt left them with more questions. Suddenly, there came a frantic pounding on the door, urgent, demanding. The voice was familiar yet twisted with distortion, begging to be let in. Mark gripped the handle, afraid to open but equally terrified to remain locked away. Linda drew Grace close, whispering they'd be safe. Time stilled. Was it someone they trusted? Or worse, a manifestation of the darkness lurking in the shadows, waiting just for them? The house felt colder, each breath a whisper of fear. Would they dare open the door? Would they face the truth that had been closing in on them? Mark hesitated, his fingers trembling against the cold doorknob. Every instinct screamed at him to remain indoors, but the unheard pleas clawed at his conscience like a wild animal trapped in a cage. What if it's someone in trouble? He thought, his heart banging hard, a constant drum of anxiety. Outside, the thudding stopped. Silence hung heavy, pressing on his chest, yet the tension crackled around them. Linda exchanged anxious glances with Ellie, who clung tightly to Grace, desperately fighting her own rising terror. "You can't let them in." Grace whimpered, her petulant courage cracking. Mark's breath quickened. He felt the pull of the door, an irresistible force. He finally steeled himself, muttering, "I just need to see." He twisted the knob slowly, inching the door open. The night air rushed in, wrapping around them like a menacing fog. Standing at the threshold was a figure, a neighbor, but one with darkness painted across her features. "Help me!" she cried, her voice desperate, vibrating with fear. The woman in gray, not an apparition but all too real. "They're coming for me." Mark's heart sank. Behind her lay a deep, consuming blackness, shifting like shadows alive with evil intent. He opened the door wider, compelled to listen. The woman swept into their home, her presence saturating the air with dread. They watch us all, they know everything. Linda closed the door behind her, the sound echoing ominously. Who, Anne? Who's watching? Linda demanded, with frantic eyes, and whispered, the cameras. They never stop. Her voice was laced with palpable terror. If you don't do something, they'll come for you too. A fleeting glance outside revealed nothing but the empty road. Yet the emptiness felt suffocating, as if invisible eyes stared from every shadow, monitoring their every move. Their lives had become a twisted tapestry of surveillance, woven tightly by secrets best left buried. Mark felt the walls closing in. We need to find these cameras. Panic surged, blending with a bitter resolve. He knew there was no turning back. The thrill of running, escaping from the unknown, was no longer on the table. This was war, a battle against the unseen. They pooled their resources, gathering flashlights and tools, determined to hunt down the hidden eyes. But as they searched, unease gripped their hearts tighter. Each creak of the floorboard sounded like laughter, mocking their resolve. Every flicker of light ignited panic, each shadow looming larger, pulsating with danger. Suddenly, the power went out. Darkness enveloped them, swallowing whatever shreds of safety remained. Lurking in that suffocating void was the unmistakable sound of soft, barely their whispers, a cacophony of voices filtering in from outside. There was no mistaking it. The neighbors weren't just watching, they were waiting, biding their time. Mark, what do we do? Linda's voice trembled, echo of her own fear. I don't know, he rasped, every word scraping against the urgency of their situation. In the silence, the house creaked like a living entity, and the cold sweat slid down his spine. But we can't stay here. We have to get out, now. With only the beams of their flashlights cutting through the darkness, they crept slowly towards the front door, their hearts thumping like war drums. As they reached the doorknob, a chilling shiver danced down their spines. It felt like they were being watched, not from within their home, but from somewhere close, somewhere lurking just beyond the edge of the light. Mark swallowed hard. Promise me we stick together, he whispered, knowing that breaking that bond could mean surrendering to despair. With a nod, they flung the door open, only to be met by a howling wind that seemed to crawl into their skin. Their breath misted in the October air, a visible sign of their fear. And just like that, they stepped back into the night, ready to face whatever awaited them. But as they raced into the darkness, a chilling thought sent shivers through Mark's soul. What if the truth was waiting just outside, and it wasn't just the cameras they had to worry about? As the air thickened around them, the unearthly whispers returned, sharper this time, as if they had been invited to the hunt. They dashed into the cold night, the oppressive darkness swallowing them whole. The wind whipped sharply, slashing at their skin, a reminder that danger lurked just beyond the flickering beams of their flashlights. Anne's panicked warning echoed in Mark's mind, they watch us all, they know everything. They had no idea who they were, but fear had bred paranoia, and every rustle of leaves made them jump. Where do we go? Ellie stammered, her small voice shaking. The street stretched out in front of them, black and empty, but it felt alive. Mark's instincts tugged him toward the woods beyond the houses. They might offer cover, but they were also filled with shadows and unspeakable things. We need to find somewhere safe, away from the houses, Mark decided. There's nothing but secrets here. They may be watching us. He shivered, the thought chilling him more than the wind. They moved quickly, guided only by the swirling light of their flashlights, their breaths synchronized in fearful rhythm. As they advanced, the whispers surged, rising like a tide, wrapping around them, tightening its grip. Fragments of eerie phrases drifted through the air, tantalizing yet terrifying. You can't escape. Come closer. Linda squeezed Mark's hand. This isn't right, she whispered, eyes darting left and right. We should go back. No, Mark countered, voice steady yet strained. We can't go back to that house, or whatever's in there. This is our only chance. The darkness seemed to grow thicker as they hurried through the trees. Branches clawed at their clothes, scratching like grasping fingers. Shadows danced mockingly just out of reach, teasing their fears. Each step was a gamble, a choice between safety and despair. Suddenly, the voices swelled, a ghastly harmony. They're mine, you're next. Mark stumbled, a cold sweat breaking on his brow. Did you hear that? He gasped. The others nodded, their faces pale and wide-eyed, terror-stricken. Before they could respond, a scream pierced the night, a sound so raw and painful it sent reverberations through their bones. It came from the direction of their neighborhood, a wail that seemed woven from the very fabric of despair. Grace! Ellie cried, her voice cracking. But Mark held her back, a hand across her mouth. No! He whispered fiercely. We can't go back. We have to keep moving. The screams cut off abruptly, leaving a deafening silence. The only sound now was the sound of their ragged breathing. Mark's heart pounded, each beat echoing like a drum, warning him of the approaching horror. They stumbled deeper into the woods, where the trees closed in around them. As they reached a small clearing, the air shifted. It felt heavy, charged with anticipation. Mark raised the flashlight, revealing a massive old oak. Carved into its trunk was a symbol, twisted and unnatural, almost pulsating with energy. A sharp chill raced down his spine. What is that? He breathed, instinctively taking a step back. Then, like thunder cracking through the eerie quiet, the whispers swelled once more. They surged with anger and desperation, coalescing into something darker. Look closer. Find me. Mark felt wild terror grip him. No. Don't look. But the others were already drawn in, as if some unseen force was compelling them closer. Trapped in that malevolent pull, they gathered around the tree, their flashlights illuminating the symbols. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl rose from the depths of the woods, rumbling like an unearthly beast. Panic surged as they turned to run, but the shadows outside the light seemed to shift and move, blocking their path. The whispers melded into one chilling sentence, echoing in Mark's mind, "Welcome home." With nowhere to go, Mark prepared to fight the darkness surrounding them. Everything seemed to conspire against them. They were cornered in the trees, with the only way forward being deeper into the unknown. Just as the whispers erupted into a shrill cacophony, an icy hand grasped his shoulder, freezing the blood in his veins. He spun, eyes wide, and faced the darkness. But as he did, the chilling realization hit him: this was not just about surveillance. They had pulled them in, and now the hunters had become the hunted. What did they want? And why did it feel like they had been summoned exactly for this moment? The air thickened as Mark faced the darkness, petrified. The icy grip on his shoulder turned to fire, igniting the instinct to bolt. But his legs felt like stone. Something stirred in the shadows, a presence coiling and pressing in around them. Every nerve in his body screamed for release, a primal urge to flee, yet he stood frozen, caught between the whispers and the pressure of whatever lurked within that dark embrace. Get away from him. Linda's voice startled him back to reality. She shoved at the shadow, but it didn't budge. Instead, it twisted, elongating like dark smoke, pulsating with a malevolent energy that seemed almost sentient. It pushed against them, forcing their backs toward the ancient oak. Run! Ellie screamed, pulling Mark to break free. But the moment they turned, the woods erupted. Figures cloaked in darkness surged forward, their outlines indistinct yet disturbingly human-like. A toneless laughter echoed from the depths, sending tremors of dread spiraling through Mark's gut. Don't let them see your fear. He shouted, trying to bolster their wavering resolve. But his own voice cracked under the weight of his terror. As he turned to reassess the monsters advancing upon them, a whisper broke through the chaos: "You have what we want. You belong to us, now." Mark's heart raced as he realized they weren't merely fleeing, they were being herded. He spotted a nearby thicket, a potential escape route. "This way," he urged, and they charged toward the densely woven branches. As they pressed through the dark foliage, sharp thorns snagged their clothes like desperate hands trying to pull them back. Mark felt Linda slip slightly behind. "Keep moving," he called, glancing back just in time to see her stumble, a shadow darting past her, dark and unfathomable. "Linda!" he yelled, stretching out a hand. She righted herself, wide-eyed with terror, the fleeting shadow snaking just out of reach. "Don't stop," he implored, but as they continued to push through the thicket, the whispering voices turned even more palpable, swirling around them like a storm. "Turn back, stay with us." Mark slammed into a low-hanging branch. Pain jolted through him, snapping him out of his haze as he staggered forward. The others hesitated, terror etched on their faces. The shadows around them seemed to thicken, swaying like a living thing, watching them as they fought against the creeping panic. "Don't listen to them," Mark shouted, forcing determination into his voice, "we can't give in." But the shadows responded, a shivering unfurling in all directions. "You will regret this." Suddenly, they broke free from the thicket, tumbling into another clearing, this one eerily illuminated by a ghostly light that emitted from a nearby crumbling cabin. The old structure looked untouched by time, standing resolute amid the chaos of their flight. Mark hesitated, a shiver creeping down his spine. "We shouldn't go in there," he warned, glancing nervously back into the dark woods where the shadows writhed. "We have to hide," Ellie insisted, her voice shaking. Maybe they can't find us there." Mark's instinct screamed in defiance, but Ellie's urgency overpowered his reluctance. He led them toward the cabin, dread pooling in his stomach. The door creaked open of its own accord as if welcoming them into its fold, inviting them to confront the terrible truth lurking within. As they stepped inside, the whispers intensified, the shadows somehow seeping through the walls, wrapping around their legs like grasping hands. Then they stopped, paralyzed, eyes wide. Scattered throughout the dusty room were photographs, faded images of their faces, each one marked with eerie symbols similar to the one they found on the oak tree. "What is this?" Linda breathed in horror, then it clicked. Everything they had experienced, every shiver of fear, every haunted warning, led to this moment. They weren't just lost, they were caught in a twisted game, orchestrated by unseen forces. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he realized, they weren't the first to be trapped here. Through the window, in the moonlight, shadows began to gather again, pressing against the glass like faces straining to get in. Something inhuman awaited just beyond the threshold, ready to claim them. "What do we do now?" whispered Ellie, realization dawning with dread as they scrambled for an escape. With the shadows growing restless and the whispers echoing their unholy intent, Mark felt a terrifying choice closing in. They could risk it all to fight or dive deeper into the cabin's sinister secrets. In that agonizing heartbeat of indecision, a voice rang clear, chilling, unyielding, and omniscient from beyond. "You've arrived now, let us play. What would it take to survive this twisted fate waiting for them on the other side? And who or what would they have to sacrifice to uncover the truth?" As the door swung shut, the whispers clashed against the wooden walls like a relentless storm. Mark's heart thundered in his chest, each beat audible in the oppressive silence that followed. He turned to his friends, their faces pale and haunted as they processed what they had just seen. Photographs. Symbols. They were being watched, even before they arrived at this cursed place. "What if we're trapped?" Linda's voice trembled, her eyes darting around the dimly lit cabin. Shadows writhed in the corners, pushing back against the meager light. "No. We've got to find a way out," Mark insisted, the creeping sensation of dread gnawing at his resolve. "There has to be something, a back door, a window, anything." Ellie stumbled back, her hands gripping the table as she stared at a photograph that lay face up. "Look," she said, voice barely a whisper. It was her own face, taken here, in this very cabin, months ago. How is this even possible? The cold grip of fear swept through the room. Mark grabbed the photo, feeling the weight of his own betrayal clawing at him. "We need to stick together," he said, barely holding back the quiver in his voice. "No one should be alone." The whispers, now louder, swirled around them, taunting their every thought. Together, apart, who will find the truth? It was disembodied, slipping in and out of their awareness, each syllable dripping with malice. "Get those out of sight!" Mark roared, tossing the photographs aside. They scattered across the floor, yet still felt like eyes watching them. Fear welled inside him like a tide, he could almost taste the salt of desperation. He glanced at the other two, their faces stark under the ghastly light. "We need to move." As they stepped into the far room, the air intensified, thickening with each passing moment. The shadows twisted unexpectedly, almost playfully, as if they were reveled in their torment. In the corner lay a heavy chest, its surface layered in cobwebs, almost begging to be opened. Against his better judgment, Mark felt an irresistible urge to find out what lay within. "Don't!" whispered Linda, as if she sensed his intention. "It could be a trap." She grabbed his arm, her grip tight, but the shadows danced dangerously close now, an alluring darkness that threatened to consume them whole. The cabin itself seemed to breathe, exhaling their fear back towards them. Mark could hear the creaking floorboards underfoot, the hesitant pulse of the building against the increasing anxiety. "If we don't do something, we won't have a choice. They'll take us. Together, right?" Ellie's voice was steadier, but the quavering in her eyes betrayed her worry. "Let us open it." Mark swallowed hard, taking a deep breath of that stale, oppressive air. He leaned closer, pressing a hand against the chest's weathered surface. With a nod from the others, he lifted the lid. The contents weren't jewelry or treasure. It was a jumble of old, rusted implements, tools stained with dark remnants, and an assortment of trinkets that shimmered ominously in the dim light. But center stage was a twisted bone, unmistakably human, etched with the same crooked symbols as the photographs. A rush of horror crashed into Mark like a tidal wave. "No! This can't be!" Voices erupted in furious laughter, blending with the whispers, now mocking their discovery. "You see? You are bound to us." Panic surged as the walls of the cabin shuddered. Mark gripped the edge of the chest, heart racing, pulse out of control. "What do they want really?" Echoing laughter ensued, ringing in their ears, drowning out their thoughts. A chill ran up Mark's spine. Something sinister was happening, and it was clear they were at the center of it. The realization crashed over him: the cabin was not just a trap, but a sickened altar. "We have to leave now," he said, eyes wide with desperation. But before they could move, the floor groaned, the shadows surged, and the door slammed shut, sealing them inside. "Now let us play," came the chilling chorus from the shadows, closing in tighter, suffocating hope. What horrors awaited them in this twisted game? Would they succumb to the dark fate spelled by the photographs? Or could they find a way to break free before it was too late? Mark felt his blood run cold as the mocking voices echoed around him. "Now let us play," the words slithered into his ears, enveloping his mind in a fog of panic. He blinked rapidly, willing himself to steady his breathing as dread sank its fangs deeper into his chest. "Move!" he barked, pushing Ellie toward the door, but it was no use. The heavy wooden frame was firm and absolutely unyielding. The whispers and laughter converged into a cacophony of disdain, an unending torment that forced them deeper into despair. Linda backed away, terror pooling in her wide eyes. "What do we do?" she cried, her voice quaking. "We can't stay here." "Think!" Mark shouted, his voice cracking. "There's got to be another way out." He turned, scanning the graying walls, the ceiling that seemed to lower with every heartbeat, the floor that felt like it was writhing beneath them. "Look!" Ellie's voice broke through the chaos as she pointed to a small window near the ceiling, cobwebs clinging like desperate hands. Light flickered through, a sliver of hope amid the overwhelming darkness. Mark nodded, adrenaline fueling him as he moved toward it. "Help me. We can climb up." As they positioned a chair beneath the window, the laughter intensified, shrill and mocking. He climbed up, heart racing. He could almost taste freedom yet felt an indescribable weight pushing against him from the inside. When he reached the window, loosening the grime, the laughter morphed, transforming into sinister whispers. "You can't escape. You belong to us now." Mark's hands trembled, but the need to free himself propelled him forward. He gripped the edge of the window frame, ready to hoist himself up, but the moment he pushed against it, pain shot through his body, a stabbing, fiery sensation that anchored him in place. "Mark!" Linda screamed, pulling at his legs. "What's wrong? I can't tie me," he shouted, desperation clawing at his words, as he began to feel a pull, something from beyond the cabin grasping at him, an unearthly force dragging him into the shadows. Ellie grabbed a belt from her jeans, tossing it to Linda. "Wrap it around him. Now." They worked quickly, securing the makeshift harness around Mark and desperately bracing themselves to pull him back. With a final surge of strength, he attempted to push through, but the shadows coiled tighter around him. "Help!" Mark cried, horror surging as he felt something icy wrap around his ankles. He could hear his friends' frantic pleas, their voices breaking through the menacing laughter, but panic clawed at him, drowning his hopes. That a strangled scream filled the air as Ellie fell backward, a sudden force knocking her off balance. Linda shrieked as she was pulled into the room's dark corner, the shadows consuming her screams. "Stay away!" Mark yelled, attempting to swing himself back, but it was too late. The laughter grew deafening, waves crashing against Mark's mind. He pulled harder, fighting the unseen hands that clawed at his legs, yanking him downwards. "No! Don't take me!" he roared, but there was no denying the malignant force that encroached around him. "Mark!" Ellie's voice was thin, wavering through the dark, laced with sorrow. "We tried, it's all missed. We should." Terror gripped him, twisting his insides as the shadows throbbed, pulsing like a heartbeat. He felt himself slipping, glimpsing the depths of an endless night below. "Fight it!" he screamed, a desperate, raw plea that echoed through the cabin, but as he fell into darkness, hope screamed out of reach. What awaited Mark in that abyss? Or had the cabin already chosen its next victim? The chilling questions loomed as the whispers grew louder, and he was enveloped, leaving only shattered cries echoing through the cursed walls. And beneath the chaos, the shadows whispered, "You are one of us now." But who else would join the dance before the final curtain call? The darkness closed in around Mark, wrapping him in a cold embrace. It was suffocating, pressing against his chest as he struggled against the weight. Shadows darted in and out of his vision, flitting just out of reach, teasing him with their sinister dance. "Mark! Hold on!" Ellie's voice cut through the mist, shaky but resolute. But it felt so distant, like a whisper on the wind. He tried to fight back, to scream, but the darkness swallowed his voice, his resolve. Just as his thoughts began to spiral into despair, a crack of light broke through the veil, drawing him back. Was it hope or another trap? The whispers turned shrill, echoing, "Stay with us, Mark, join us." In a burst of panic-fueled adrenaline, he clawed at the darkness. He reached for the light, scrambling for something, anything to anchor him to reality. But each grasp dissolved into swirling blackness. Suddenly, he felt its cold fingers, long, brittle, like gnarled roots clutching at his skin. An icy grip tightening around his ankles, dragging him lower, deeper. He fought, thrashing against the invisible forces, but with a breath, the shadows yanked harder. "No!" he screamed, desperation surging within him as visions of Ellie and Linda flickered, faces now masked in fear, swallowed by the same malevolence. He couldn't let it claim them too. "Mark," he heard Ellie's voice again, softer now. "We need you." Fight it. The darkness pulsed, the air thick with menace. She was close, too close, but every second dragged like an eternity. He could only evade but not dismantle the encroaching force. A fleeting flash of warmth ignited in his chest. Love, friendship, the bond that tied them, pushed him when he felt he'd succumbed. He screamed again, a primal roar that shattered the thickening gloom. The shadows writhed as if pained, recoiling briefly before coming back with a vengeance. Mark. A new voice emerged, a howling rush of wind that bore dread with it. It was Linda, though he sensed her struggle somewhere beneath a much darker sound. Suddenly, there was a strange shift. The darkness receded just enough for Mark to glimpse a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room. It hovered, a disembodied presence with hollow eyes. "You can't escape. You never could," it hissed, the voice dripping with malice. Mark's world twisted with fear. "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" The figure laughed softly, a sound that sent icy chills racing down his spine. "You think you matter? You're part of a game, boy. Just pieces on a board." The realization hit him hard. The cabin thrived on their terror, feeding on it like a predator pulsating in the night. Something twisted within him, a refusal. Maybe it wasn't about escape, but about fighting back, uprooting the darkness. With a grunt, he pushed himself to his feet, the tether around his waist anchoring him to his friends. "I want to let you take us. Not today." As he prepared to pull them back, the shadows surged violently, thrumming with anger. The laughter morphed into a growl that rattled the walls. Mark could feel the cabin shaking, responding to his defiance, twisting as if alive, but then he heard its soft sobs from the shadows. "Help us," Linda's voice pleaded, pulling on something buried deep inside him. What had become of them? Would he be brave enough to face the depths, to unmask the horror that had ensnared them all? He pushed against the specters tightening around him, every ounce of fear morphing into unyielding determination. "Stay with me," he shouted, his voice vibrant now. The darkness momentarily ebbed, revealing flashes of his friends in agony, their terrified eyes locked onto his. Would that strength be enough to pull them all back from the brink? Or was there something darker awaiting them in the shadows? As the walls around them trembled, a final whispered voice seeped into his ears, "Join us, it's what you wanted all along." Mark's heart raced as the cabin shuddered, and he clung to the last vestiges of hope. But as he looked at the darkened corners, the shadows stirred again, whispering promises of eternal darkness. Would he dare to embrace the horror, or was there a flicker of chance lingering in the depths? Time slipped, and with it, the chance to escape, or maybe, the choice to confront the evil head-on was about to unravel. What choice would be made when the final mask was peeled back? The dance of shadows grew louder, hungry for their final curtain call. Mark felt a surge of energy, something burning deep within, mixing with the fear that clawed at his gut. He could not let the shadows win. He could hear Linda and Ellie's cries, their pain echoing inside him like a drumbeat urging him to fight. Gritting his teeth, he took a step toward the shadowy figure. "You're wrong. We do matter." His voice rang out, the defiance pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The figure hesitated, its hollow eyes flickering. "Do you think strength alone can resist the void?" It hissed, and suddenly, specters of his past flooded through the room, an old friend lost to fear, family members who had turned away, his own regrets swirling like dark smoke. Each memory bore a weight, pressing against him, clawing at his resolve. "Mark, please." Ellie's voice suddenly broke through the cacophony of despair, a lifeline in the abyss. "You have to know." He roared, shaking his head as he struggled against the darkness. "I want to abandon you." Clenching his fists, he felt a ripple in the atmosphere, a distortion in the fabric of reality. The shadows writhed, losing form for a split second, a weakness. The figures around him, Ellie and Linda, emerged momentarily brighter, their faces pleading with him to harness that flicker of hope. "Help us," Linda whispered, her eyes reflecting the flickering light that died as swiftly as it appeared. Realization washed over him. The light wasn't just a fluke, it was a weapon, and he could wield it through the strength of his bond with them. The shadows rippled again, more violently this time, trying to drown out his thoughts. But amid the darkness was a pulse, something alive. He closed his eyes and reached out, focusing on what made him fight. Together, he cried, his voice rising over the thrumming chaos. He envisioned Ellie and Linda beside him, their hands clasped in solidarity, breaking through the veil of despair. Their bond was the light and unbreakable tether against the encroaching darkness, but as the darkness pulsated and thrashed around him, it began to whisper again, seductive and dark. They are lost. You have no power here. Mark's heart raced, a primal rhythm drumming in his ears. He could feel the cabin shuddering, the air heavy with a sickly sweetness that threatened to choke him. The light their connection was faltering, swamped by the dread that threatened to consume him. No! He screamed. You don't get to have us. With every ounce of willpower, he shouted their names, a desperate chant of defiance meant to cut through the layers of horror. Ellie. Linda. At that moment, the shadows momentarily recoiled, as if bracing for a blow. In response to his raw emotion, a vibrant light sparked from his chest, illuminating the dark corners of the room, pushing back against the shadows, revealing their grotesque forms, and scattering them like leaves in the wind, but the reprieve was brief. The cabin rattled violently, a groan reverberating through the walls that felt like the very foundations were being tested. Suddenly, the lighter atmosphere cracked, and the chilling laughter returned. You're a fool, boy. This is only the beginning. Mark felt a coldness seep into his bones, the reality of their situation weighing down harder. Breathing was a chore. What do you want from us? He stammered, heart pounding in dread. Your fear, your despair, it is a banquet we have only begun to feast upon, the figure intoned as shadows swarmed back with ferocity, tighter than before. Fight it. Stay together. He urged, his voice trembling yet steady. He sensed their presence behind him, pulling away from his connection. The darkness pushed, and in that moment, he realized the more they feared, the stronger it grew. Panic clawed back at him. Would their bond hold? The shadows lurked closer, their tendrils of darkness twisting and curling menacingly. Mark felt his resolve fraying as the screaming whispers surrounded him, pulling them further into the abyss. Mark, the voices called again, filled with sorrowful defeat. Help us, could he save them? Or would the darkness ultimately feast on their shared fears, leaving nothing but echoes of despair behind? With his heart in his throat, he braced for an inevitable decision. But as the shadows closed in, he took a deep breath, ready to either confront the darkness or dive deeper into the nightmare. What awaited him beyond? The echoes of the past howled around them, and Mark could feel the weight of the choices pressing down. It was time to find out. Would light prevail, or would the shadows claim them forever? The chilling silence fell once more, and he knew that whatever happened next would change everything. Mark braced himself, heart thundering as the shadows swirled around him, coiling tighter. Agony lurked in the corners, an unkempt hand gripping at his throat, tiny pinpricks of despair digging into his skin. Ellie. Linda. He roared again, the grasp of desperation setting his voice ablaze. The shadows shrieked, splattering coldness against him, their obsidian forms writhing and swirling like dark smoke. They were relentless, determined to claim what little light flickered within him. Mark, a faint echo drifted through the chaos, none other than Linda's voice. We're still here. He turned, searching for her against the dark tide, desperate for reassurance. Their eyes met, and their pain intertwined around him like a haunting melody, pressing against his chest tightly, suffocatingly. In that moment, Mark felt a shift deep inside. The connection he had with Linda and Ellie wasn't just hope, it was survival. It was tangible. Drawing strength from them, he shouted, "We are not your fodder." The response was immediate. The shadow figure screamed, a cacophony of agony echoed off the cabin walls, the sound piercing through the darkness. Mark felt the weight of the malevolence pressing against him, like 1,000 vengeful fingers gripping tighter, siphoning his courage. Your light is but a flicker in the vastness. It hissed, the air heavy with malice. You will drown. Mark closed his eyes, feeling the engulfing dread swarming over him, threatening to crush him. In the depths of his soul, he grappled with a fierce determination. No more. I want to let you take them. A sudden pulse erupted from his core, illuminating the cabin in a dull, flickering glow. It pushed back, a ward against the darkness, but it felt fragile like glass ready to shatter. Fight it, Mark. Ellie's voice broke through like a beacon, and he could sense her presence surging toward him. Images of happier days flooded his mind, the laughter, the warmth, the strength of their shared experiences. He grasped onto those memories, channeling their vibrant energy. Together. He cried, feeling Linda's and Ellie's warmth pushing against the shadows, coiling around him, fortifying his stance. But darkness was wily. The moment their bond glimmered, it slashed back, vicious tendrils sweeping through the room like serpents. Mark staggered, feeling the cold creep into his bones, their despair tightening around them like a noose. Mark, it hurts, Linda wailed, her voice a whisper ripped through the suffocating air. He clenched his jaw, fighting against the darkness trying to unravel him. Hold on, stay strong. Panic lurked at the edges of his mind. What if they were right? What if their connection wasn't enough? The shadows bared their fangs, whispering promises of despair, of hopelessness. Their revelations leered at him. You're drowning in fear, boy. You know it. Mark was losing ground. He could feel it, the shadows snaking deeper into his psyche, planting seeds of doubt that germinated into full-grown despair. Focus. He shouted, almost in disbelief at his own wavering heart. The shadows lunged again. A figure formed clearer, a twisted caricature of his father's face, eyes brimming with disappointment. You will never be enough, Mark, it taunted, voice gravelly and reverberating in his head. With a surge of rage, he pushed back harder. You don't get to define me. In a wild moment of clarity, he realized something pivotal: the cabin, the shadows, the pleading cries, everything was amplified by fear. If he could just face it down. I'm not afraid. He shouted, though inside, he quaked. Would it work? Could it shatter the suffocating void? Suddenly, Ellie and Linda's laughter burst like sunlight through the storm clouds. The warmth swelled again, igniting his resolve. Like a flame rekindled, he closed his eyes and pushed every ounce of will, of love and defiance, into a blinding light that erupted from deep within, sweeping through the cabin, but the shadows shrieked in rage, rising like a flood, pulling at him again. You can't escape us. This is your forever. Mark's heart pounded in both fear and defiance. Would this illumination guide them all home, or would it trap them further in the dark? Help us echoed, pleading, resonating in the air, a call for salvation or surrender, tainted by dark promises. And even as the light flourished, shadows crept closer. He could feel their breath on his neck, cold, clammy. The final choice loomed ahead. What horror awaited behind that next flicker of silence? The light trembled as he took one last step forward. Ready or not, he was facing the darkness. The cabin shook, a restless beast caught in a feral rage, shadows ripping and tearing at the edges of Mark's newfound light. Mark felt the warmth surge through him, a sharp contrast to the bone-chilling dread surrounding them. Together. He yelled again, louder now, channeling every ounce of strength he could muster. We fight together. Ellie and Linda stood resolute beside him, their faces illuminated with resolve. We want to let you take us. Linda shouted, her voice weaving through the fabric of despair. As they rallied around each other, their shared connection felt like a lifeline, a rope tugging them fiercely back toward sanity. Mark closed his eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on the memories that fueled their bond: the laughter shared, secrets told late into the night, and moments of unwavering support. All of that love pulsed like a heartbeat, a force strong enough to push back against the tide of shadows encroaching around them. Light. We are the light. He roared, gripping the ethereal energy with all his might. The shadows recoiled, hissing like angry snakes, but the bond between the three held firm against the oppressive darkness. With renewed courage, he raised his hands, allowing the intensity of what they shared to flow through him. The brilliance expanded from his chest, spreading warmth and illumination, pushing the darkness back, driving it deeper into the corners of the cabin. Their sanctuary of fear was shaking, but it was also collapsing. A reckoning was approaching. "Look!" Ellie cried, pointing towards the walls. The photographs that once bore their images were now shimmering, the symbols writhing like snakes, dissolving in the brightness. "It's working. Keep fighting." The apparition at the center faltered, its form shifting as the shadows hissed and swirled like a dying storm. "You think you can escape?" It shrieked, its voice a cacophony of despair. "You are mine, destined to remain." "No." Mark's determination roared back, echoing the love surrounding him. "We choose our fate. We choose to fight. Together." Echoed Linda and Ellie in unison, their hearts tethered to him, ready to face the darkness. United. As their collective light broke free, the oppressive atmosphere fractured, colors swirling joyfully through the gloom as splinters of hope pierced through the chaotic shadows. The very walls of the cabin trembled, a yearning for release cracking through the centuries of pain bound within. "Let go!" Mark shouted, and the shadows writhed, a final desperate attempt to cling to their fear. "We are free." A tidal wave of brilliance surged from Mark, Ellie, and Linda as their connection shimmered like a supernova within the cabin. Shadows screeched, a cacophony of rage and anguish, before they vanished, retreating like clouds before advancing sunlight. As the last tendrils of darkness dissipated, the cabin shuddered one final time, its foundation crumbling into dust. Light flooded in through the fractured windows, bathing them in a warm glow that felt like home, real home. Mark opened his eyes, gasping as he blinked against the sunlight streaming through, flooding the cabin with golden warmth. The oppressive weight lifted, a cruel grip released as clarity swept through him. They staggered into the bright, crisp air outside, faces flushed with triumph and relief. "We did it!" Ellie breathed, barely able to articulate the disbelief and joy bubbling within her. Linda collapsed into Mark's arms, relief flooding through her. "We're free." As the weight of that final moment settled around them, Mark glanced back at the splintered cabin. It stood there battered and broken but at peace now, the shadows forever banished by the light of their love and strength. "We're okay," he murmured, looking at Ellie and Linda. "We're really okay." With rhythms of their heartbeats synchronizing, they knew they had triumphed not just against the darkness, but against the very fears that tried to conquer them. They were more than just survivors, they were a family forged in light, bound by the fierce magic of love. As they walked into the brightening horizon, new beginnings stretched out before them, freedom palpable in every breath. But that was not the end. It was only the beginning of their journey, a journey unshackled from fear, bursting with the potential of hope. This could be the moment when you take control and share your thoughts about this heart-pounding ride. Don't just sit there. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. A world bursting with adventure awaits you. And remember to smash the like button now to feed the algorithm's insatiable hunger. Your support means everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's hear your voice. And for the truly brave, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. The light shines brighter when we share the journey together.